Now, our individualized schemata can be an awesome thing in the classroom and in reading education because without diversity, we never learn or grow as students or teachers. However, they can also be frustrating and problematic. Because we all come from different experiences, we approach texts with huge differences in background knowledge and experience. Schema related to events, concepts, vocabulary, and objects described in a passage of text will influence how students perceive the text and how they get meaning from it. Reading comprehension greatly depends on how effectively a reader can relate information in the text to existing or background knowledge. If either formal or content schemata that we talked about earlier in the presentation are lacking, the student will most likely either be so frustrated that they give up or they won't comprehend what they need to comprehend. The basis of all reading education as it pertains to schema theory, the teacher's job is to help students build schemata and relate new incoming information to them. Because we are teachers, we have the power to control for things like text type, structure and topic, and what is best to use for our students. With any group of students at any level, there are a couple of things that have to happen during reading instruction. Pearson Casanave outlines that when it's time to read new material in class, we need to identify what types of background knowledge are necessary to comprehend the text. Concepts, specialized vocabulary, and/or the text style or organization. Along with text-specific duties, we need to think about our students. We need to consider their background language and culture, their background experiences, the communication styles that they're used to, and how they're used to working in the classroom. For students who are at-risk readers, ESL students, and students with disabilities, many times daily reading becomes daunting because it's difficult, which leads to frustration. The source for reading difficulties begins when a reader has an idea about the author's interpretation of a text, but it's not the intended interpretation. Most of the time, this discord has to do with the fact that the reader does not possess the schema required in order to successfully comprehend what the author is saying. In the case of ESL or EFL students, according to Carell and Eisterhold, these students will not have all of the necessary cultural and linguistic schemata in order to comprehend many of the texts that we use in schools in the United States. Other cultures employ different approaches and strategies in content and structure of their writing and reading systems. This is why it's important that teachers know the background of their students. In trying to help students expand their existing schemata, we should be helping them add to their knowledge, not replace it with new correct knowledge about the new norms of reading and writing strategies that we utilize here in the United States. In 1981, Riggs suggested the language experience approach, or LEA, to reading. LEA uses students' ideas turned into words in the preparation of beginning reading materials. So basically, the students talk about a topic of their choosing and then dictate it to the teacher where she writes it down. The student can then use their own dictated experience as a reading resource. This method works because students can usually read what they've just said and it makes sense and it's relevant to them. Many of the activities for ESL students pivot around the idea of introducing unfamiliar concepts and vocabulary through pre-reading activities and visual aids. Pearson Casanave posits using extensive pre-reading activities to trigger and build background knowledge. She describes her successful use of a communicative pre-reading activity where students mapped out where they had been in the world and then discussed with each other where they had been. She found that this pre-reading activity built schemata, developed relevant vocabulary without having to practice vocab drills, and was a highly personal, communicative activity that the students took part in and really enjoyed. Little and Box also suggest the use of semantic maps, which are graphic representations of student-generated ideas related to the major concept to be read in text. This pre-reading activity utilizes a graphic organizer where students write down what they know about a general topic and then discuss and categorize the class ideas. Important vocabulary and concepts are introduced and directly linked to the text at hand. Another list can be completed post-reading to show what the class has learned from the text. After the No Child Left Behind Act, students with disabilities had to start performing at the same level as students without disabilities. Because of this, teachers had to start getting creative about how to go about teaching the same concepts to varying levels of students. Schwab, Tucci, and Jolivet introduced the concept of schema-based instruction, or SBI, combined with response cards. In their example, they use schema-based instruction to convert math word problems into visual representations. Of course, for SBI to work, students must have some existing knowledge, or schemata, of what a word problem is and the various types of word problems that can occur. Students are responsible for figuring out what category word problem they should depict and then use their response cards to respond to what the teacher is asking. Response cards facilitated participation while categorizing the word problems utilized students' existing schemas. Although the specific example was used in math, response cards and schema-based instruction can easily be transferred to reading and language arts through fact and opinion, true or false, fact or fiction, etc., etc. I've included two texts at the bottom that depict the language experience approach, which is kind of cheesy, but it's a good video. And another one is a pre-reading activity that I didn't mention, but it's a great example of introducing new vocabulary and concepts.